Today I'm going to tell you about the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Move over, let the others mess around.
Audio Jungle.
In 1947, cartoons were not made on a computer, as they are now, but were filmed on cameras with film. The actors were live cartoons. In those years, Roger Rabbit was a big star of animation with Baby Herman. The two of them were making a crazy dressing down on the set when private detective Eddie Valia showed up here. Eddie used to love working with cartoons. He and his brother often investigated crimes in the cartoon town, but since his brother was killed by a cartoon character, Eddie hated all these painted weirdos and became addicted to alcohol. He was invited to the studio by his big boss, Mr. Maroon. He needs Eddie to follow the rabbit's wife, Jessica and Rebbit. He wants to prove to Roger that his wife is not as faithful as he thinks. Mr. Maroon is sure that after that the rabbit will be able to concentrate on work and stop screwing up in the frame. Eddie asked for $100 for his services and received an advance. Mr. Maroon also gave him information on where to look for Jessica. After that, Eddie went to the bar to his good friend Dolores, with whom he once had a romantic relationship. He wants to borrow a camera from her. On the way, he sees that the Cloverleaf Corporation has bought a tram depot and soon all the trams will be removed. He was told the news at Dolores' bar. Here, Eddie had to teach a lesson to a local drunk who started laughing at him because of working for Toons. "I don't work on cars." In the evening, Eddie went to the club where Jessica was performing and met Marvin Acme, who is famous for his practical jokes and loves cartoons. He even doused Eddie with disappearing ink as a joke. Marvin owns the Acme Company and the entire cartoon town. He came to the club to once again admire the stunning Jessica. Eddie wondered why a man like Marvin fell for rabbits, but when Jessica appeared on the scene, he realized how much he was mistaken. Jessica was a painted woman and very seductive. She managed to win the heart of a seasoned detective. After the performance, Marvin went to Jessica's dressing room, and Eddie tried to peek through the keyhole what the two of them were doing there. But a security guard noticed him and threw him out of the club. Eddie had to peek out the window. What he saw shocked him. Marvin and Jessica were playing palm games sitting on the bed. After taking a couple dozen pictures, Eddie printed them and took them to Mr. Maroon. After learning what his wife was doing behind his back, Roger Rabbit fell into despair. "He was sobbing so much that I had to give him a glass of whiskey to calm him down. This drink literally blew the rabbit's mind. He got so excited that he shattered all the glass objects in the office with his scream. And then he jumped out the window, leaving a stencil in the shape of his body there." While Roger was suffering after learning about Jessica's infidelity, Eddie stifled his long-standing grief in his office by pouring whiskey into himself. In the morning, Lieutenant Santino came to him and told him that Marvin Acme was dead and the rabbit was on the run. He is suspected of a murder motivated by jealousy, and Eddie is needed to find the big-eared carrot lover. Together with the lieutenant, he arrives at the crime scene, where Judge Rock and his ferret's bloodhounds appear. This creepy man in a black hat came up with a way to destroy Toons. He invented a special compound that dissolves cartoon characters without the possibility of recovery. The judge calls this composition syrup and is happy to demonstrate how it works on a cartoon shoe. When the rabbit is caught, Judge Rock plans to stuff it into the same barrel. However, Eddie pretends not to be aware of the details of yesterday's drama that played out in Maroon's office. Of course, he doesn't like Toons, but he likes sadists in hats even less. Back at the office, Eddie finds Baby Herman with his babysitter in front of the door. This talking diaper is protecting his rabbit friend, but Eddie doesn't want to talk to him. Snorting a shot glass, he shuts his detective sense away and goes to bed. However, he is not allowed to sleep. Roger canvassed half the city to find Valant, and showed up to him uninvited. Bigard assured the detective that he had not killed anyone.
"A big mistake. I didn't kill anyone, I swear."
He came to Jessica's dressing room to leave a love message there. He wrote it with lipstick on a blank piece of paper, which he now always carried with him. Rabbit asks Eddie to protect him and find the real killer, but he is not eager to work for the cartoon. Pretending to leave, Roger climbed into the closet and decided to joke with the handcuffs, shackling himself and Valiant with them. At that moment, the ferret's judges of Rock arrived. They found out that Bigard was looking for Eddie, but they didn't find anything in the detective's office. He hid the rabbit in the sink with dirty dishes and pretended to wash it. When the ferrets left, Eddie stuffed Roger into his bosom and went to Dolores. In her establishment there is a secret room where you can hide for a while and remove the handcuffs. And while Eddie was sawing his bracelet, the rabbit easily pulled his paw out of his own. Eddie asks Dolores to find out about the will that Marvin Acme allegedly wrote before his death. He leaves the rabbit in a secret room, and he goes to his office. Here Jessica Rabbit comes to him. She said that she hadn't really cheated on her husband. Marwan decided to blackmail Acme and presented an ultimatum. She had to play hand-to-hand with him on camera, otherwise Roger would have been kicked out of the movie business. In the midst of their innocent conversation, Eddie found himself without pants in front of Jessica, and Dolores came to the office.
Dabbling in watercolors, Eddie?
She was jealous of the painted girl, but Eddie managed to calm her down. Then Dolores told him that she had found out about the will. If he is not found before midnight, the Cloverleaf Corporation will take over the Motown. Eddie didn't have time to digest this information when he heard that Roger had staged a performance in Dolores' bar. Eddie dragged Big-Eared into a secret room, and while he was scolding him, Judge Rock and his ferrets came to the bar. He promised a good reward for the rabbit, but the regulars of the bar did not buy it. They defended Roger, and the judge had to use a proven method of exposing tunes for years. He began to tap the walls in a special way. Roger had an attack of unexplained activity, and he broke out into the common room, where he was caught by the judge. And when this scoundrel in a hat tried to drown the down of a narrow in syrup, Eddie intervened. He offered the rabbit a drink as a last wish, and he did not immediately, but still drank. After being taken on the chest, he turned into a writhing and screaming creature. And while Roger was delivering bottles and glasses, Eddie dealt with the ferrets, and then dragged the rabbit away with him. On the street, they jumped into the judge's car, but could not start it. There was a cartoon car in the luggage compartment that the ferrets arrested. In it, Eddie and Roger drove away from their pursuers.
The police are behind us. Correctable kind.
While the two were hiding in a movie theater, Eddie saw a news release that the Cloverleaf Company had outbid Maroon's studio. And then it dawned on him. He realized that this was the key to the solution. Eddie set up a meeting with Maroon and threatened to extort the truth from him. "How are you, Maroon?
Do you want me to die of a heart attack?"
Representatives of Cloverleaf offered him to sell the studio together with the cartoon town, but Acme refused to part with the City of Tunes. Then Maroon decided to get his consent by blackmailing him with pictures with Roger's wife. Maroon also added that if Acme's will is not found before midnight, Motown will be paved over. However, he didn't have time to say anything else. A stranger with a big revolver shot him. Eddie managed to escape. When he looked out the window, he saw Jessica Rabbit. A minute earlier, she had stunned Roger and shoved him into the trunk. Eddie followed her to the entrance to Toontown and armed with cartoon bullets drove inside. Judge Rock almost shot him in the alley, but Jessica defended the detective. They chased the judge together. Jessica already knew that the judge was a murderer, because Acme had warned her that this man would stop at nothing to take over the cartoon town. Marvin gave her his will, but the document turned out to be empty. It was on this piece of paper that Roger later wrote his love letter. While Jessica was telling all this, the judge ambushed her and Eddie and captured them. He took them to the warehouse of the Acme Company, from where his ferrets had already made a hole in Toontown. Exactly at midnight, the judge wants to break into the cartoon city and douse everything with syrup, and build a freeway in the vacant place and row money from various gas stations and roadside cafes. Having told his villainous plan, the judge ties up the rabbit and his wife and hangs them in the air. Then he accidentally falls and the ferrets start rolling with laughter. The judge warns them that one day they will burst out laughing, and Eddie takes this idea into service. He gives them a space show, one of the ones they used to arrange with his brother. And the ferrets go to the next world, laughing to death. Eddie then stops the car spraying syrup at Roger and Jessica and grapples with the judge. He manages to send the opponent under the rink, and then it turns out that the judge is also a cartoon. Moreover, he killed Eddie's brother. Eddie wouldn't forgive him for that. He rolls it with syrup from the container, and the judge melts in this liquid. When it was over, the police arrived, and Eddie released Marvin Acme's will. It turns out that he wrote it in developing ink. Acme bequeathed the Motown to the eternal possession of the tunes themselves. Eddie Valiant's mission is accomplished and he picks up Dolores and walks off into the sunset. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more of these videos.